Now, I don't usually do 2 videos in a single day, but the news that Liverpool are considering a move for Napoli winger Chiesa Kvaratskhelia was thrust upon me a little bit, and therefore felt like I had to come on and give you all an update about that. If you haven't actually watched that yet, do seek that out on the channel. Really interesting story that's potentially developing for Liverpool's January window there. But, of course, outside of it being a transfer window on, there's also matches to consider, and I want to focus a little bit on Liverpool's next match in this one, which is, of course, a third round FA Cup meeting with Accrington Stanley. Now, in terms of the draw, I don't think Arne Slot could be much happier with this one. Obviously, getting a League Two side at home is pretty much the perfect draw, really. Liverpool have had some really poor ones down the years, particularly under Jurgen Klopp. In the first part of his reign particularly, he seemed to get a Premier League side every time in the FA Cup and League Cup, but thankfully a little bit different this time around, and I think it gives an opportunity for Arne Slot to rotate, to make changes, to give rest to those who need it, and I'm absolutely sure he's going to grasp that. But exactly how is that going to look? I've had a little bit of a go at trying to pick a starting 11 for this one. Of course, as usual, do let me know in the comments what you think. I'm interested to know how your lineup maybe changes after I've discussed mine, and if I can influence you at all. So do let me know what your starting 11 would look like. But I'm going to start with mine, and as ever, I'll start with the goalkeeper, and I do think this is a pretty easy pick. I felt quite sorry really for Quivine Kelleher that he didn't get his usual berth in goal for the League Cup game in midweek against Tottenham. Obviously that has been his competition in recent years, but obviously the way that the fixture schedule has fallen, it did kind of make sense, and I totally understand why Alisson was in for that League Cup game. But of course, because we saw Alisson in that one, we are surely going to see Quivine Kelleher come back in and be the man between the sticks for this one. Obviously not generally featured in the FA Cup, that's more of an Alisson competition under Jurgen Klopp, but I think the way that it's worked out this time, I do think we'll see Kelleher in goal for this one. Now, in terms of the back four, I think at right back, maybe, I don't know if this is an obvious pick, it's kind of tricky, this one, I think, because obviously Trent plays half an hour in the game against Spurs. Do you maybe need to give him a little bit more minutes in terms of trying to keep his rhythm up for this one? Was he just pulled out of the starting 11 to kind of protect him from the bit of a storm after the game against Manchester United? I'm not quite sure about that one, but I wouldn't be completely shocked to see Conor Bradley start at right back, to be honest. I think he only plays 60 minutes against Spurs. I don't expect him to be in the starting 11 against Nottingham Forest, so was the 60 minutes against Spurs kind of recognition that he is going to be asked to go again in this one? I think he'd certainly be my pick. I don't think the manager would love the idea of giving a player 2 games off, or pretty much 2 games off. So maybe if Bradley does start this, we see Trent maybe as a substitute appearance late on. But I think he's too important to kind of risk in this game fully. And I think Conor Bradley as well probably needs the minutes again. He's had an injury absence, probably needs to build his rhythm up. So he is my pick at right back. And on the other flank, I'm going to go for the left back next. And again, we've seen rotation between Kostas Tsimikas and Andy Robertson in this position so far this season. But I think it's been clear in recent weeks that Robertson is the clear first choice in that position. And that's why it's kind of a little bit of a surprise maybe to see Kostas Tsimikas come in for the League Cup game. Not least because I think I don't know whether it kind of rules him out of maybe starting this one. Maybe it's an indication perhaps that maybe it's becoming more of a straight shootout for who has the starting spot for this one. So we saw Tsimikas in that one. Do we see Robertson in this one? He is my pick at left back in this. And then for the Nottingham Forest game, it's basically the manager said, right, you both had minutes recently, I'll look at your performances there, but also it's a straight shootout in training for who's going to get the starting shirt against Nottingham Forest. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I think a rested Robertson is probably a better version of him than we've seen recently, so that is important. But I do wonder, with Tsimikas starting in the League Cup, whether Robertson will come back in for this one, and to give himself the option of him playing against Nottingham Forest, maybe you just come off on the arm out. But we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, in terms of the centre-backs, do not want to see Virgil van Dijk anywhere near this one, and I suspect that we will not. It's too important. Doesn't need to be playing against the League Two side at Anfield. So absolutely, categorically, we will be seeing him getting a rest for this one. Now, of course, the options are a little bit thinned after that, because Joe Gomez is out with a hamstring injury at the moment, so not too many options as alternatives. I think one that is the easy pick is Jarell Quansah. We heard from Arne Slot in his pre-match press conference, this morning, that Jarell Quansah had that illness at Spurs, but that he's okay now. He's back in training. He should be fine. And so he only played 30 minutes, didn't he, against Spurs? So I would love to see him come back in here and build on that. And I think he needs a good performance as well that can kind of build his confidence. It's been a bit of a tricky run for him recently since Arne Slot came in, but I'm still convinced about his qualities, and so I hope he gets to show them in this one. So hoping that he can come into the starting 11 at centre half now that he's well. And in terms of who partners him, it's tricky. I think it's really, really tricky, this one. We've seen Endo do well there. He is an alternative option, but I kind of need him elsewhere, which we'll come on to. Amara Nallo is a young centre-half who's been around first-team training, but is it throwing him in a little bit too early to put him in? I know it's League 2 opposition, but you can't underestimate the fact that, obviously they won't have much of the ball, they won't sustain many attacks, but players who play at that level, they've got experience, they've got nous, they are proper men, rather than, if you throw in a kid against them, yes, the level that they play at might be slightly different, but I still think you can sometimes find a young centre-half can get bullied or outwitted in those situations, and I just wonder whether they'll be very, very cautious about throwing him in, and for that reason I've gone with Ibrahima Konate. Now, again, that may seem like a big risk. Obviously, he is just back from injury. Liverpool want to be careful with him. But of course, he only plays 10 minutes against Spurs. And again, I think when you see him come on the pitch, he gets shoved off the ball by Solanke in that moment. Does he need a little bit of rhythm putting back into him? Does he need maybe an hour in this game where he's probably going to be comfortable? As I say, there's not going to be too many attacks to fend off. But you put someone like him in, it'll be a nice little run out for him, nice and gentle, get that rhythm back in his legs. I just wouldn't be shocked at all. As I say, I think 60 minutes is probably the limit of his output in this game. I think they'll be very, very wary about pushing further than that. But I do think it would be worthwhile for Konate to get the start here, even though I can imagine people are screaming at me, what are you doing starting him in this game? But it's just, from what we've seen from Slot so far, wouldn't surprise me at all. And I'm going to move into midfield now and start with the one that I already kind of previewed there, which is that I think Wataru Endo absolutely starts this one. Obviously, he had to come on after the half hour mark, against Tottenham Hotspur, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant in that centre-half position, as he has been when called upon it in that Southampton game. He's been brilliant when he's come on in midfield for me, actually, as a substitute, but I think he's going to be put on in that sort of favoured position in this game where he needs minutes. Of course, again, don't want to see Ryan Gravenberch anywhere near this one. He's picked up way too many minutes this season. He's far too important, and obviously the manager's not massively trusting of Endo, is he? So he doesn't want to lose the guy who is his first choice as that number 6. So don't even think we'll see Gravenberch in the squad for this one, if I'm being honest. But I'm absolutely happy to put Endo in there. I don't think he's let Liverpool down even once this season. He's been brilliant, so it'd be important minutes for him, and really good to see him back in the starting 11, because, as I say, doesn't ever let anyone down. Now, in terms of who's alongside him, I think another one where it's maybe a slightly straightforward pick is Harvey Elliott. Now, of course, there's been a bit of speculation about his future this week, about potential interest in him because he's not been getting many minutes. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, do check out the transfer update that I mentioned earlier. Have a look about that to learn a bit more about where he's up to. But I think it's nailed on that he starts in this game, to be honest. I think, obviously, it's been a frustrating period for him, struggling to get much playing time. But in terms of opportunities, this one is absolutely perfect, surely, because he can be thrown in. You can trust him. He can play that level. That he can be one of the main men against a side like a League 2 opponent who are going to sit in deep. He's really good at unpicking those deep blocks as well. So, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. I think he's a wonderful footballer. And we haven't really seen enough of him, have we, this season? So I think it's a big opportunity. Can he come in? Can he show what he's all about? Maybe make a point to the manager. I know it's against League 2 opposition, but even so, show that he can do the things that he wants in his system, and that he maybe deserves a little bit more game time. So I really hope to see him involved. And just to finish off the midfield, again, I want to give rest to all the midfielders who've got through an awful lot of work at the moment, and for me that is obviously Gravenberch, nowhere near it. I don't want to see Alexis McAllister. I want him to have some time off, and Curtis Jones, I don't think he's in the best form at the moment, but equally he's played a lot of football, so wouldn't mind seeing him getting rested. And so for that reason, I'm going to throw in Dominik Szoboszlai. Now, his fitness was addressed at the pre-match press conference. Arne Slot said that he trained with the under-21s on Thursday. Now, that makes it sound like he's not very close to actually being involved in first-team training, but the reason he trained with the under-21s is because Liverpool were delayed in returning from London on Wednesday. Obviously bad weather at the airport, so they had a bit of a longer trip back. They had to fly to Birmingham, then get on the coach, so first team training was actually cancelled off the back of that. So that's why Szoboszlai was involved in under-21s training, but I'm expecting that he will be fit now. He's over that illness, and I think he should be in contention for this one. Again, I think he desperately needs minutes now because he's missed quite a lot of football. He was rested against Leicester, came on for 10 minutes, ended up picking up a yellow card that got him suspended for West Ham. Missed the West Ham game, then he got ill for the Manchester United game where I think he was a big miss, and then he was still unwell around the Tottenham game. So very, very important to get him involved as quickly as possible. And again, this is one that will ease him back in, I think. So want to see him in the starting 11 for this one. Now, in terms of the front line, again, a few big choices to kind of make around this one. I think one thing we will say is that Mo Salah, again, like Virgil, like Gravenberch, will not be anywhere near this one. They are kind of top three for most minutes played for Liverpool this season, so don't want to see them take to the field, and Salah is absolutely crucial in terms of that. Now, I'm going to maybe start with the centre-forward role because I think this is kind of an easier pick. I think this is going to be Darwin Nunez. I think he needs goals. I think he needs minutes. I think he needs that sharpness. Goals in particular, just for his confidence. I thought he was quite good when he came on against Spurs in terms of he gave them another question in terms of to answer, in terms of running in behind, making things tricky for them, not allowing the game to be just played in front of them. So I thought he was pretty good in that, and he had a decent chance that he made himself really, where a good shot off on the volley. So want to see him build on that and get them the goals for confidence as well. So I think he's just a nailed on starter in this, and like I say, hopefully he can get in those goal scoring positions and make it count, because I think it'll be really good for him. He has to have an impact between now and the end of the season, even if you believe that he's going to leave, which I probably do think. Liverpool need to get something out of him, and I think games like this is maybe where you can do that. Now, in terms of the wingers, kind of had a big think about this. Obviously, Mo Salah I don't expect to be anywhere near it. I do wonder if Luis Diaz is going to start. Don't know whether it's going to be left or right, but I do wonder if he's going to be in the starting 11. Obviously, he only played as a substitute against Tottenham Hotspur, so you don't want to lose too much rhythm. You don't want to leave him out for too long. Can he just do 60 here to keep himself sharp? Maybe, I know it's a strong selection to put him in there, but again, I don't think this manager likes leaving players for too long without playing games. If they are in the starting 11 regularly, I think he likes to keep them going. So again, I think that maybe with Luis Diaz missing that Spurs game, maybe does 60 minutes here, then he comes back in for the Nottingham Forest game. I think that's maybe the route he's going to go down. And similarly, on the kind of, I think he'll probably be on the left-hand side. I think Cody Gakpo maybe plays in this one. Again, he only plays 60 against Spurs. Does he get a few minutes here? Maybe another 60? I'm just a little bit, maybe you could say that Jota could maybe start on that side, but I'm a little bit sceptical about that, mostly on the basis that with Jota, I think, the manager's maybe a little bit wary, still kind of easing him back in. And if that's the case, and Jota played as much as he did against Tottenham, maybe he's kind of lining him up for that Nottingham Forest away game. We'll have to see how that pans out. But I think he's probably got more faith in Gakpo to come in and do 60 here and then move Jota as a replacement. And I also think with Jota, I don't think he'll want to use him on the left-hand side. I think we've seen so much of him in the centre-forward role. That is very much what the manager likes to do with him. And so I don't think we'll see Jota there. I think it will be Gakpo. And the reason you may have noticed I haven't mentioned Chiesa here as a starting player in this. I really do hope he gets minutes in this. Want to see more of him. But I'm just slightly sceptical, to be honest, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier around Jota. The delay over easing him back in, just how long that has taken. I would be really, really surprised, to be honest, if we see Chiesa coming in for a start here, because he's barely featured at all in terms of even minutes as a substitute. He doesn't seem particularly near it, and so for him to come in and be a starter here, I would just be shocked, to be honest. And again, it just kind of feeds into what we're learning from the manager, what we're seeing from him. like I say, I just can't see a world where Chiesa starts this one, albeit I do think he will come on as a substitute, and I do hope to see that. So there you go, that's my starting 11 to face Accrington Stanley in the FA Cup. Do let me know what you think about that. I know it's quite strong on paper, but just knowing this manager, what we've seen so far of him, and I will mention as well, by the way, that I want to see Chiesa come on. I would love to see Dan's involved in some way. Absolutely love him as a player. Trey Naoni as well. Maybe Rio Ungmar will be part of the squad. Maybe we can see a little bit of him. But I think this manager has just shown that he likes to go strong. He likes to keep players in rhythm. And there are also quite a few fringe players in that 11 who you would expect to come in as well. So it's an interesting one, and maybe it's a controversial pick. You let me know what you think. Always interested to hear that. And as I say, don't forget to check out that transfer update on the channel. Loads of things going on around Liverpool at the moment, isn't there? It's really interesting time, but I'm very much looking forward to this Accrington Stanley game as well. And as usual, I will be at Anfield for my post-match review, so I'll see you guys then.